So in this video, I wanted to do a quick review of the Kaco Edge, and that's this pen right here. This is a clear clone of the Lamy 2000 fountain pen, and it sells for about $20 versus, $150 or so for the Lamy. This is a Lamy rollerball, but it'll serve for now. So the Kaco is a fountain pen. Again, it uses very similar materials to the Lamy 2000. So for $20 for this, you're getting a closer clone of the Lamy 2000 than you are of, say, a $3 Jinhao or Wing Sung, which will clone the Lamy Safari or maybe a Twisby Eco or something like that. So I just wanted to run through this Kaco and let everyone know if I thought it was worth the money or not. So first of all, the aesthetics are surprisingly close. The Lamy 2000 has this brushed macrolon body, so it's like a fiberglass type of body, stainless steel nib with a spring, and very limited extras on the outside. There's a little cut right here. There is some work here. There would be a window on the fountain pen. Again, I don't have the fountain pen with me, but there is a window, and not too much else is going on. With the Kaco, you can see same outside. They really nailed this. It's also brushed macrolon, and I believe it's the true thing, like actually macrolon, but it's hard to tell. On the website, in the description, they do say it's macrolon. This piece is aluminum instead of steel, but they match the color pretty much exactly. It's not brushed, it's just sort of a satin finish, but it is spring-loaded. And it doesn't really spring so much, but it's pretty close to what you're getting with the Lamy. Not nearly as nice, but fairly accurate. Yeah, it's not that easy to use. Fairly accurate. The edges, the top and bottom, no true finial, but it is glossy the way it is on the Lamy. And it's also a push in, push out with a little type of snap. That is perfectly on with the Lamy. Picks up hand oil just like the Lamy does, and it shows up in a slightly kind of gray brush just like the Lamy. It's not quite the same. The Lamy looks a little bit lighter, maybe a little bit more of a sort of feathered appearance. This one has a little sharper finish on it, kind of like the brushing was done with a slightly coarser brush, but you could say is clearly very close. Opening the pen up is now where we see some actual significant differences. The Lamy would have a metal finish here and a lot of macrolon. This one, the Kaco, uses aluminum down here. It matches with the macrolon quite closely, but not perfectly, and obviously not as perfect as macrolon to macrolon, which it is brushed aluminum to macrolon. You also have those little tabs to hold on the cap, and that's just like the Lamy. You can see the little tab here, and you can see what the macrolon to macrolon looks like. Moving over to the Kaco, the aluminum has a little bit more shininess to it than the macrolon, but the tabs look about the same. As for the nib, we have a more conventional steel nib here. It's actually made by Schmidt, so that's pretty cool. Made in Germany by Schmidt, and this is sold in fine, and extra fine, fine, and medium. The Lamy 2000 nib is gold, and it's partially hooded, and it's sold in extra fine, fine, medium, broad. There might be a double broad, and then some of the specialty nibs. This one is only sold in extra fine, fine, and medium. Again, the Lamy is a 14K semi-hooded nib. This one is a stainless steel and a conventional nib. But again, it's from Schmidt, so it's going to be reliable. Black plastic feed on the back, whereas there's really no visible feed on the Lamy 2000. Opening the pen up, we can see it uses I won't pull this out once it's working, but uses a refill that looks exactly like the Lamy T10 refill, but it actually goes in backwards. I don't know why that is, but the skinny side goes inside the pen, whereas on the Lamy, the skinny side stays on the top. It was super confusing to me. My Kaco also shipped with a bunch of ink on the inside. I gave it a good cleaning, but even here you could see that some of the ink must have gotten into the top, which is really annoying. This cartridge was totally clean, and now we can see there's ink up there. Again, it's such a bummer to get a new fountain pen with ink just kind of splattered on the inside, and you open it up and you get a handful of ink. That's, even at $20, that's a major disappointing thing for me. This pen ships with 2 cartridges, but no converter. If you were to put something in here, you would use a standard Schmidt International converter. The fit is good, no problem there. The line here, you can definitely see a pretty distinctive line here, and some of that has to do simply with the transition from one material to the next. The Lamy 2000 is really known for having almost no visible line. So if you look at it from like this light, the line really starts to disappear. It's a little bit more distinctive at some angles, but that line can really disappear. And then you see there's another little line right here that is, you probably just make it out, but Lamy really does an excellent job of hiding that, where Kaco is either unwilling or unable to. And again, by using the aluminum material next to the Macrolon, there's only so much that can be done. So I think that covers the basics. Comfort-wise, it's actually a lot like the Lamy 2000. It has that kind of slippery feel to it. This doesn't have the same taper. It's a little bit fatter here, and it doesn't go as far down. The Lamy tends to go almost entirely to a point at the nib, whereas this stops right here where the nib starts. So you don't have quite the same taper, but that's really just aesthetic, which you don't really hold the edge. You're holding it here, and it actually does feel a lot like that Lamy. It does work posted, but it tends to be a little back heavy. Actually, it feels really uncomfortable to me posted. I haven't really used it like that, but it is on there firmly. There's no clip back here. I believe the Lamy does have one on the fountain pen version. So there's no clip or anything back here. Maybe it doesn't, I can't quite recall. But there is no little clip like that. So this is just a sort of a pressure fit. It goes on, it stays. You don't feel it click or anything like that. So fairly comfortable pen. I don't have too much to say about it and how it feels, except that it feels a lot like the Lamy. And any problems you have with the Lamy, you will probably have with the Kaco. When it's in your hand and you're not thinking about it is when it seems to most approach the Lamy 2000. You know, when you're holding it out here, you could look at the nib, you could look at the aluminum, all these other things, but once you're in your hand and actually writing, it feels like you're holding the Lamy 2000. Writing is a little bit of a different story. And again, that's mainly because you have this Schmidt stainless steel nib, which is very good and very utilitarian, but it's definitely not that Lamy 2000 14 karat nib. So this is the Kaco edge. It's kind of misfired a little bit there. Try it again. I don't know why I keep drawing exclamation points. So this is the medium. It's a wetter medium if you're used to Japanese pens. Definitely on the wet side. It's probably even wetter than the Lamy 2000 medium, or maybe pretty close. Puts down a lot of ink, and I'm using that Kaco included cartridge here. So let me see. Definitely a firm nib. There's not a lot of variation. You can get a little bit of opening up, but it's definitely on the firm side. Doesn't have the smoothness of the Lamy 2000. It's a nice, thick wet, medium. No problem keeping up with the flow, really. And I don't really feel any compelled at all to put a cartridge in here, but put a converter in here. But I wouldn't know where to get more of these cartridges. I think it might use the Standard International, but it didn't look like it did to me. So that's just something I'm gonna have to investigate more. And if there's a lot of interest in this video, we'll do a follow-up. It definitely doesn't take like a Pilot or anything like that converter. So that is the Kaco Edge. This is a $20 Lamy 2000 clone. You know, points for using a Schmidt Schmidt nib, and points for using what appears to be real Macrolon. But I definitely have some problems with this pen. But I know people have problems with the Lamy 2000 as well. But that's such a distinctive and iconic pen that getting something that gets you kind of 70 or 80% of the way there, it still doesn't feel like you're really getting what you want out of the Lamy 2000. You're buying that pen so much for the aesthetic of the nib and how that gold nib actually works that having a Macrolon body is very cool, but without that real Lamy nib, it doesn't seem like you're really getting there as much as you might think. So on paper, yeah, it looks a lot like the Lamy. Capped looks a lot like the Lamy, but the writing experience is pretty different, and this isn't really going to get you where you want to go. If what you want is a solid fountain pen with a Macrolon body and the aesthetics of the Lamy, then yeah, this is a great use of $20, and it's a Schmidt nib, so you know it's going to be fine. But at the end of the day, it's not as much of a Lamy 2000 replacement as some people might have made it out to be, but it's probably as close as you're going to get for $20. So thanks for watching.